Well, I'm happy to introduce Ariana Gómez. She will be leading the session Help, I've Got Eco-Anxiety. So please, Ariana, join the stage.
Before I begin, and let me tell you, I'm super happy to be here with you. Some of you I recognize, some of you have even experienced some of our reconnection with nature experiences or eco-anxiety experiences as well at the FLEA. And for those of you who haven't, I want to also say why this is important and why are we talking about eco-anxiety and why you should consider if you have eco-anxiety or someone you care about and what to do about it. So before that, how many of you know what eco-anxiety actually is? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you worry about the future? How many of you are really worried about the future of our planet in terms of collapse and climate change and biodiversity loss? Okay, pretty much everyone. So that means that if you don't have eco-anxiety right now, you might have it very soon. So, because we know that the talk about sustainability is really a train that left the station a couple of years ago, if you ask me. We should be talking about now, about regeneration, decarbonization, climate adaptation, climate resilience in the face of the climate collapse that we're already in. And so, it's better to know what is eco-anxiety, what triggers it, and do I have it, and how to navigate your life with eco-anxiety. This is not something that you can solve. This is not something that you can just get rid of, because if someone promises you that, then that's a lie. Eco-anxiety is something we will experience. Every time a forest near your house starts burning down, you will have eco-anxiety. Every time an animal that you like or care about suddenly appears on the endangered species list, you will feel eco-anxiety. Every time the ocean has more plastic than fish, or your children are worried, or you are worried about the future of your children, you will have and experience eco-anxiety. So that's why it's important. And then maybe you're asking, why is she speaking about that? She's not a psychologist. I have a company called Technology for Impact, and I'm a consultant, really, in all things about regeneration, decarbonization from a multi-systemic and intersectional point of view. But as important as the hard bit of that is, and when I mean the hard side of that, I mean AI, climate modeling, data, strategies, innovation, and technology that we work with, the soft side of it is super important. It's actually more important because it has to do with our mindset and our emotions. And we live in a region in Latin America and in a country in Mexico where that's taboo. Mental health, emotional well-being, talking about our emotions, talking about what worries us. There are some men still that are told when they're little children that men don't cry. You don't show your emotions. Even us women, when we are CEOs, founders, working in the corporate world, we are told, don't show your emotions. Don't do that, don't cry. Never cry in the boardroom, never show your emotions, or you're too emotional. The thing is, we're mammals, and we have emotions. And we need to start dealing with those emotions, especially in the context of environmental collapse. So that's why we're doing it. And yes, I'm not a psychologist. I am a member of the Climate Psychology Alliance of the US and the UK, and I've learned and trained in eco-philosophy methodologies, neuroscience, positive psychology methodology, so that I can help you understand that there are many things that can help you take better care of yourselves so that you can keep on going and take better care of our planet. But we need to take care of ourselves first. And with that, if we can go to the next slide, please. So, 3 steps you need to know about. We don't have a lot of time. Thank you. We don't have a lot of time today. This is a half an hour thing. So, If you really, really need to know about the 3 steps that are really important for you to understand and deal with eco-anxiety are these. First, what is it? Understanding it. What is it and what is it not? And then, what triggers it? And we're all different, so we will have different triggers, but there are common triggers as well that we need to be aware of. Social media, doom scrolling, fake news, ringing any bells. And then, number 3, how can you thrive? How can you cope and thrive despite having eco-anxiety? Like I said before, there is no cure. If we lived in a country that's at war, and someone tells you, I have a pill or a tool that will help you have 0 anxiety, that's a lie. Whenever a bomb hits near your house, you're going to have your heart almost stopped and panic. So whenever we see things that hurt our feelings, because we are mammals and we're part of this planet, we're going to have eco-anxiety. We're going to worry. So it's not really how to get rid of that, because you cannot get rid of emotions, but how to deal with it and cope and keep on going. So what is eco-anxiety? Anyone knows what eco-anxiety is or have any ideas of what eco-anxiety is? How does it feel? Those of you who said you experience eco-anxiety, anyone? You can say a word like fear or sadness, stress, impotence, I love it, yes, like helplessness, right? Well, eco-anxiety is really just a trendy word. There are many eco, whatever emotion you want to put next to it. Eco, worry, impotence, frustration, helplessness, sadness, anger. We are very angry as well. When we see, for instance, governments turning to the other side instead of doing the right thing, or companies, we get really angry, pissed off actually, but also sad, depressed. Some people are having suicidal thoughts. Some people who dreamed about having a family are questioning if they should have children in this context or not. So the spectrum is really huge, from just being mildly worried to considering suicide. And that's where we are today. According to the Climate Psychology Alliance of the UK and of North America, 8 out of 10 employees in corporate America suffer from eco-anxiety. So this not only affects your health and your well-being, it affects the way you communicate and relate to your loved ones, to your neighbors, to your community, to your colleagues. People will stop going to work more often because of eco-anxiety, and they will start isolating more in a time where we need to build more community than ever. And so climate anxiety, again, eco-anxiety is just a trendy word. That's the word that really caught up with the media, but it's any sort of emotion. And then why do we talk about eco-anxiety and not climate anxiety, which is more clinical and more professional normally? Well, because climate anxiety means I'm anxious about the climate. And yes, we are anxious about the climate, but we're also anxious about biodiversity loss. We are not anxious necessarily only about the degrees that are, warming our planet. Yes, we are, but we're also worried about indigenous people suffering. And right now we know it's not only indigenous people somewhere in the Amazon or in Africa. We know it's people right now, today, in Vienna, in Poland, in the south of Germany, and everywhere really. So climate anxiety is really about the climate, and eco-anxiety considers biodiversity, animals, people, and I think we really respond to that more. That's why we choose to use the term eco-anxiety and not reduce it to climate only. And so, if you can see here in the pictures, sometimes it feels like you're really carrying the whole world on your shoulders, especially people like you who are working for the environment, trying to find solutions, reading a lot of stuff that triggers a lot of emotions as well. So it feels like that. Sometimes it feels really dark. And climate anxiety, if we look for a term or a description, we can see that according to the American Psychological Association, means a chronic fear of environmental doom. So we're afraid that the doom is near, that this is doomed, there's no solution. I cannot see past it. I cannot see how this is going to be solved. This is These are some of the things that people say when you talk to them about eco-anxiety and you listen to how they're feeling. I cannot see a solution. I cannot see the end of the tunnel. I'm not sure we're going to be able to transition. I don't know what the solution is. And I'm talking about people who are super informed, who really read the papers, talk to scientists, invest in climate solutions. So it's really a chronic fear of environmental doom. And as I mentioned before, the spectrum is really huge, from mild stress to stress disorder, anxiety, post-traumatic stress. People in Vermont who had their houses flooded and lost everything, they have post-traumatic stress. Psychologists and psychiatrists are recognizing there is a pattern between people who have post-traumatic stress disorder from war to people who have post-traumatic stress disorder from climate and environmental loss. So we see a connection there. It's real. This is not something that the millennials or the centennials are crazy experiencing and talking about eco-anxiety, oh, these children. No, this is real. And some people didn't know they have it, and once they learn about what eco-anxiety is, they have it. They suddenly recognize it as well. Some people who have heard a podcast episode that we recorded where we talk about the origin of the problem, people who are maybe 75 years old tell us, I didn't know I had it, but I definitely have eco-anxiety. Now I understand it. So you put a face on a problem. So that is eco-anxiety. And we can all know what it is, how it feels, and remember, it's all sorts of emotions, not only anxiety. Sadness, depression, frustration, helplessness, feeling super pissed off. The other day, I'll tell you a very short story. I was on a plane, and there was this guy talking to me, and he was telling me about how he's so engaged in the environmental community, and he's an entrepreneur, and he really wants to, change the world. He has this kind of passion. And I was so excited to see a young person, way younger than me, talk about this with such passion. And then I go to the toilet, and when I come back, he's reading the book that many of you know, Exponential Organizations, from Salim Ismail, who's actually a friend, and I used to work with him when I was at Singularity University. But the book and the idea behind it is crap. It's crap in the context of environmental collapse. How many planets do we need for exponential growth for everyone? And I came back and I saw the book and I had this horrible urge to grab the book from him and hit him on the head with it. Like, no, you cannot marry those two things together. Saving the planet, but I want exponential growth for my company. No. And of course I didn't, because we know violence is never the answer, but I did have the urge. So that's another feeling and emotion that you feel sometimes when you're suffering from eco-anxiety. And so that triggered it in me. But there are many other triggers. You can recognize many here. The media. We are addicted to social media. We are addicted to our phones. Even here, right now, with no Wi-Fi, look around and you will see people in their phones. People who said they have eco-anxiety. And I'm not blaming anyone, I am the same. The thing is, we have an addiction. And this addiction does something here in your brain that connects with your emotions that doesn't let go of you at all. We are all the time doom scrolling, looking for subconscious confirmation that the world is doomed when we are doom scrolling and going to social media and seeing what someone posted about something about the environment, especially you guys. There are two groups of people in the world who suffer the most from compassion fatigue: veterinarians and environmental activists or entrepreneurs. You are one of those groups. Compassion fatigue literally means you get burnt out for caring so much. And that's a trigger as well if you're all the time talking to people about the problems. Oh yeah, this is so bad. Oh, did you read what happened the other day in Oaxaca with the rains and the floods? It was horrible. Yeah, but have you looked at, the news and did you see what happened in Vienna? And look now, Poland and Africa. Oh, they're eating the elephants in Namibia now. It's a disaster. All of the time we're flooded with bad news. We cannot cope with that. Schools are trying to prohibit now the use of cell phones and computers because children are being affected at an emotional level. Suicide rates are soaring. Why do you think you're different than a child in terms of your brain? We're zero evolved brain-wise. We're really very basic mammals when it comes to that. And we get super stressed. That's why there's more domestic violence. That's why there's more depression, suicide rates. We need to take care of ourselves. But that's a trigger. So we're going to look at the solutions in a moment. But that's a trigger. And then we have all the news. And because we work in the environmental sector, we read the news about the things that we do. But then we're all the time inundated with that. And then we have the power of the compound effect. Some of you, there are a lot of people in finance here, know very well what compound effect is when it comes to investments. But when it comes to emotional saturation and eco-anxiety, there's a compound effect as well. If you are suffering because of what's going on with the planet, the animals, the people, the ecosystems, whether you're aware of that or not, you will be compounding any other anxiety you might have. That means if I have eco-anxiety and I'm really worried about what's going on with the planet, and I also have debt, I will see things way more darker than they actually are. And if I'm going through a divorce or a breakup, or worrying about not finding a partner, then I will see that reality way more complicated than what it actually is. If I have trouble with my family, with my job, if I just lost my job and I have eco-anxiety, it will feel 10 times worse. So it's compounding. And that's very dangerous because that's why many of us sometimes feel so burnt out that we just shut off. And then what happens from a psychological and brain level, when you shut off, you're like, I don't care. Don't tell me about these things anymore. I don't want to know. Or you just encapsulate your feelings, and then one day, somewhere in the middle of, I don't know, but in an airport, you see a picture of a little polar bear and you break down. Or you have a fight with someone that wasn't really necessary. So we need to start understanding what triggers these things and how to take better care of ourselves as well. And we need to be very mindful of what we read. And so that takes us to number 3. How can you cope and thrive despite having eco-anxiety? And if you have eco-anxiety now, you will have more eco-anxiety in 2 years. I don't want to add to the negativity, quite the contrary, but we need to face the reality. And that's something that's super scary, very scary. But we need to do it. Because if we do, then we can understand how we can cope and navigate through that complexity, through that changing world, through that environmental collapse. If we don't face it, we're going to be sheep following whoever leader or so-called leader, be it from politics or from a company, that promises things that are based on the interest of their company or of their political agenda and not you or the planet. So we need to face the reality. There's environmental collapse. Things will get scary. There are many good things happening as well, like this summit, like all the initiatives you have. There are millions and billions of dollars being invested in solutions, in technology and strategies, and we need to focus there. That's really the good news, but we need to face it. And so, how can we cope and thrive? First is understanding it. And there are really 3 things that, from all the tools and frameworks that we work with and that we have developed as well, there are 3 main ones that I want to talk about with some examples. The first one, and this might look a little bit weird for some of you, especially for the people who are used to working with numbers and the scientists don't say that, that sounds esoteric. Open your minds, please. The first one is learn from nature. Learn from nature. Why? Because nature is the greatest teacher. If you want to talk about technology, I know AI is right now crazy, and yes, we work with that as well. But there are no better technologies than the technologies we find in nature. She is really the greatest innovator. She's really the greatest teacher. So learn from nature. Learn from the 4 seasons. We are the only mammal in the world that's so crazy that when all other mammals are going to hibernation, are resting, are gathering their energy to, face a tough winter, we are the only mammal in the world that's thinking, okay, what are my New Year's resolutions? What do I want to achieve starting January 1st? And then I draw a list of things I want to do. Of course, we all want to lose weight. Of course, we all want to do more exercise. We want to be more productive because production is great, right? Exponential growth, of course, without production would be impossible. And we have a list of so many things we want to achieve instead of resting. And of course, by January 5, we're all failed people, because nobody can accomplish so much. So learn from nature. What does nature and all the other inhabitants, our neighbors, our non-human neighbors, do during the seasons? There's a season for recollection. There's a season for rest, for hibernation. There's a season for planting seeds and patiently waiting for them to grow. We cannot accelerate everything. We cannot expect super and hyper productivity yields for everything. That's crazy. That has led us to where we are today. So learn from that. There's summer, there's spring, there's autumn. How does that feel, emotionally speaking, in you? When do you need a rest? And use the 4 seasons framework to understand how you're feeling sometimes when it comes to climate collapse, when it comes to biodiversity loss. And if you think, oh, that's very crazy, really, she's talking about mammals and whatever, I'm not crazy. Forest bathing is actually something that doctors, scientists in Japan, in Germany, in Switzerland are prescribing their patients for many things, not only emotional and mental health issues, but actual physical issues. People who broke a bone, people who are going through cancer treatments, they prescribe them time in nature. Go out to the forest for 2 hours in silence. Listen to the leaves, to the birds. Look at the way the sunlight goes through the trees. Feel your feet on the earth. Forest bathing, it regulates your nervous system. It inspires you. It reminds you of the importance to observe, to be curious, to learn about other things. And so that's very important. Resiliency. There's nothing more resilient than nature. And when you feel really hopeless about what's going on with the planet, remember that nature is super resilient. If we give her a chance, she will regenerate things that are impossible to believe. In the UK, after World War II, with this Green Revolution idea, they basically got rid of all the trees in the UK, so that tractors could come in and pesticides and fertilizers, could make the land more productive. Apparently, now we know today that was a huge failure. But there is a place called Knepp Estate, and Knepp Estate in Sussex is a place where they decided, instead of going bankrupt trying to bring more yield to the land, to invest in regeneration and rewilding. And there were 18 different types of bats. 16 of them were already declared extinct in the UK. After 20 years of this regeneration project, the 18 bats have come back to Knepp Estate. It is today in Europe the best example of rewilding and regeneration. So the resiliency of nature always surprises us. So when you feel really dark, remember that nature has that potential and learn from her to be resilient yourself. And then calm your ego, mammal. Remember, you're a mammal too. Sometimes we have a huge ego. We want to solve the world. We want to have this burden on our shoulders, like, I need to solve the world, especially when you're much younger. We've all been there. It's nice. Keep that passion alive, but control your ego. And control your ego means remember to think about the world and the planet that we inhabit from an evolutionary point of view as well. We are not the center of the universe. There have, many things have happened in the history of humanity and in the history of the planet before we even existed. And we're going also through a stage that, yes, we have accelerated, that, yes, we are to blame in many ways, but it's part of a continuum of life. So try to think about what's going on also from an evolutionary perspective, and try to not put yourself in the center of the universe, because we're not. We're not. Let's trust a little bit more on the resiliency and the magic of nature and other species that are also adapting to this new change. And let's start adapting ourselves as well. The second one, practice self-care. This is so important. And again, a lot of people and a lot of men are like, oh, self-care. I'm not a metrosexual or whatever. Self-care is fine. Self-care means taking care of yourself, taking care of your feelings, name them, identify them. If you're angry, think about, why am I angry? Try to put a pin on that emotion. And there are many ways you can do and practice self-care. Go to therapy. That's the best advice. Go to therapy. If you're feeling a lot of eco-anxiety, that's very helpful. You can talk to someone, talk to a friend. If you don't like therapy, talk to a friend. If you go to therapy, remember that a psychologist alone will not be able to solve the problem. Because you cannot go to a psychologist or even a psychiatrist and say, I have eco-anxiety, help me. Because eco-anxiety and environmental collapse is trans-contextual, it's intersectional, and it's systemic. So a psychologist won't be able to solve that. But it will help you cope with those emotions. So go to therapy by all means. Practice enough-ness. We all have a lot of issues with this. It's not only the exponential growth tail, it's also consumption, where when we are connected to social media, and all the money flowing in social media of companies trying to sell you something, we want to have these things, we want to have this stuff, oh, the new dress, the new shoes, the new cream, the new car, the new watch, the new experience. Now it's all about experiences. Oh, I have to go and swim with the orcas in Norway because I love orcas. If you love orcas, leave them the damn alone, because we're invading them now. Yeah. If you love polar bears, don't go to the North Pole, because you're contributing to something horrible. But we are so addicted to social media and to all the things that all these companies want to sell us that we're always in this rush, this sugar rush of buying more, consuming more, consuming more. Practicing enoughness will help our budget, our nervous system, and our planet as well. And as leaders of companies, CEOs and founders, all of you, I challenge you to think, what would be enough for my company? Exponential growth is something that cancer cells go through. Are you a company, or are you pretending to be a cancer cell for the planet? So get rid of that exponentiality mindset and ask yourself, what is enough? What is a good thing for my company? How can I pay good salaries to my employees? How can I add value to society? How can I have a thriving business that's enough? And be happy with that. Maybe we need to have 20 good clients, not 2,000, and be burnt out and never spend time with our family. I know that's a shocking idea, but why not? And then Stoicism. I talked about therapy, but philosophy is something that I studied when I was doing my bachelor's. I love it. I'm in love with philosophy. Whenever I'm really lost, I always find a solution, or at least a good word with some philosopher. If you really want to go deeper, read eco-philosophy. There are amazing eco-philosophers out there that you will find solace and advice in. So I really recommend that, especially Stoicism, which is a branch of philosophy that really helps us deal with our emotions and be regulated people. There's nothing worse than working with people who are emotionally volatile. We have leaders like that. Politicians, candidates, presidents, I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about, at least in Mexico, but there are many others as well. So Stoicism is good for you, for your people, for your family, for your company, for the planet. So let's be more stoic, learn about it, reach out, and then take a break. It's okay to take a break sometimes. I'm going for the weekend to the forest, to the beach, to a spa, whatever, and I'm not going to read the news. I'm not going to be doom scrolling. I dare you. It's super hard, but do it. You will give yourself and your loved ones a huge gift. And then be mindful as well. And this one is a huge one. Be mindful of anything that you put inside of you. Your head. We always talk about diets, right? What are you eating? And the new book. Well, there's a mental diet we need to be aware of as well. What are we eating that could have a good impact on our planet? But also, what are you consuming that's affecting your mind? Is there something you're following on social media that's really garbage? Unfollow. It's very easy. It's okay. Don't have fear of missing out. Do it. Be mindful of what you're putting inside of you. Be mindful of what you're allowing as well. Draw boundaries. If you have that person who always tells you every day, oh, did you see what happened in, I don't know what state? They shot them. It was horrible. And then, did you see the news of the dogs that were killed? Learn to tell people, you know what? Could you please not talk about those things now? I have a project I need to finish. If you want, we can schedule a coffee and you can tell me about all the bad news. But right now, I don't need that. It's okay. It's okay. So be mindful of what's affecting you, what triggers you, what hurts you emotionally as well when it comes to eco-anxiety, and draw boundaries and decide what you decide to put inside your mind and your body. And then finally, we have the third one, which is take smart action. And this is very important. People talk about hope. I don't have hope. Well, hope is not for free. That's the bad news. Hope is not something I can sit down and say, God will solve it, or Bill Gates will come with an innovation breakthrough, or, well, Elon Musk evidently will not. Sorry for the fans of Elon Musk here. I totally detest the guy. But anyway, take smart action really means take action that will yield hope for you. Hope is a result of action. That's why one of the best environmental books out there from Joanna Macy, who was my teacher and is a 97 heroine, she's amazing, is called Active Hope. She, in the 70s, started talking about methodologies that could help people cope with the nuclear threat back then. And now it's the same methodology that helps us deal with eco-anxiety. And active hope means the hope that results from taking action. So take smart action. When I say smart, I mean there are things we can control and there are things we cannot control. If you look at that little circle to the right, it says circles of control. Stephen Covey, this management whiz, wrote a book, and he has this model called the circles of influence, concern, and control. There are 3 circles in our lives. The smallest one is the circle of control. That's what you control, what you actually control. I control what I eat, I control how I dress, I control the words that come out of my mouth. And then there's a little circle that's the circle of concern. That's, of influence. So there are things that I cannot control directly. I cannot control who will win an election. But I can influence with my vote. Maybe it's only one vote, but maybe I can influence through, trying to talk about my favorite candidate with other people. So there are things you can influence, there are things you can control, and there are things that you're concerned about, but you cannot influence and you cannot control. And most of us spend more time in the circle of concern than in the circle of influence or the circle of control. So think about what are the things you can control, what are the things that you can influence. Decide I'm going to do those things maybe every day, 2 or 3 things, and that's enough, and I'm fine, and I'm doing my part. Maybe it's eating a plant-based diet. Maybe it's using Ecosia instead of Google or any other searcher, because I know when I use Ecosia, they are planting trees for free. Great, it's free. But decide what you can control and focus there, and stop being and living in the circle of influence, of concern, because that's where you are only worrying. That's not good for you. And then remember the things that you can actually act on, your time. Be an activist, be a volunteer, your money. How do you spend your money? Whenever you choose to buy something, you're telling the market, do more of this. So be mindful of that. How do you use your money? Where do you have your money? Is it in a bank that's supporting fossil fuels or petrochemicals, for instance? Or plastic industries or weapons? Change your money to a bank that's more aligned with your values. Money has a lot of power. That's something you can do. Your voice. If you have social media, use it for good, to amplify messages, not doom messages, but good things, good news, good ideas, initiatives. So that's another thing you can do. And your vote, of course, vote. I will never tell anyone who to vote for, but vote. That's our responsibility. That's something that can also influence as well. And then there's another one that's called identify your role or choose your role. And this is very important. Right now, I would love you to consider this right now, here, today. What role do you want to play in this context? Do you want to be a doom scroller? Do you want to be a doom caller? The one shouting, the world is ending, everything is bad, all the politicians are bad, all the companies are irresponsible? Or do you want to be a bridge volunteer? Someone who helps people cross between where they are today and where we all should be. What role do you want to play? And that will also help you decide how to use social media, your time, your relationships, but decide what to do with that. And finally, the thing that I want to tell you about these things, these little circles with examples, is unleash your imagination. This sounds, again, a little bit out there, but what do I mean with that? We spend so much time about worrying, about numbers, with negativity. But the first step to build a better future, and I didn't say this, Einstein said this, the first step to make something a reality is to imagine it. We need to start doing it ourselves and teaching it to our children and little children at schools, everywhere, your neighbors. Let's spend more time imagining and really marinating in the amazingness of imagining a better future. How does it look like for you? How does an amazing future look like? How are the relationships in that future? How do governments work in that future? How do cars and houses exist in that future? Schools and fruit trees and food. So let's start investing more time imagining a brilliant future, drawing it, talking about it in our companies with people, with everyone, in our families, at Sunday brunch. What future are you excited about? If you had like a magic wand, what future would you build? And let's start bringing those ideas and those visions to reality, to start building them. But we need to spend more time imagining the future that we want. And so just keep in mind, this you can put in a sandwich. On top is gratitude. When you feel in your darkest hour, always think about gratitude. If our Mother Earth has the time to keep giving us sunrises and sunsets and birdsong and flowers and the smell of flowers and animal companion, we at least can honor it and enjoy it from time to time. So gratitude is a powerful tool to deal with eco-anxiety and negative emotions. And finally, community. When we feel down, we isolate. We need to force ourselves to go out there and to be part and belong to a community. This is really the most important thing to remember. We're not going to solve this alone. That's why I said before, control your ego. This is not a one-woman show or a one-man show or a one-company show. This is about community. Talk to your neighbors. If there's a climate catastrophe where you live, you better know who your neighbors are. Start calling them by their first name. Start asking them, hey, do you need me to take care of your dog during the weekend if you're going away? Or do you need babysitting? Or do you need my grass mower? Whatever. But start building more community around you and belonging to community. That's really the key to dealing with all of this. That's the basis. So that's why it's in a sandwich. Okay, so these are some of the hundreds of tools that are out there for you to deal with eco-anxiety. We have built a playbook. It's a 27-week playbook. There are so many tools out there. Read about it, find out, reach out, and if you want to know more, follow me and ask me questions. I'll be here during the lunch. I'll be very happy to talk about it. If you're a company and you're more conservative and you're not still there, you can see what we do, Technology for Impact. But the message here is really take care of yourself, reach out, belong to a community, and keep imagining the future that we want. We already have many doomers out there, and you need to take care of yourself so that we can all keep taking care of our planet. It depends on our well-being as well. Thank you very much.